Hi YepCoders! In this video we'll show you YepCode's new tool, the YepCode CLI. This is a command line interface that will allow you to manage your workspaces from your local work environment. With YepCode CLI, you will be able to access YepCode with your credentials, clone workspaces in your local environment, update local resources with cloud resources, update cloud resources with your local resources, and run processes locally. Before we start, we will need to have access to this tool, and for this, we have a form in the documentation section of our CLI, through which we can request access to our entire team, providing the name of the team and the email of its administrator. The YepCode support team will verify the data and send an email with the steps to follow to set up the YepCode registration. Once our YepCode CLI is installed, we can run it and run the help command to list all your options. To clone a workspace, we will use the clone command. If we do not pass it any, it will list the list of available equipment. We will use one for cloning. And this will generate a folder with the name of the equipment and inside it all the resources of the workspace. We'll find a process folder where, for each process, a folder is generated with its name and the IDE, and inside the files that compose the process, such as the source code, the schema of the input parameters in JSON format, a README, and an auto-generated file with the default parameters that will be used when executing a process. In the GS module folder, we will find our GS modules for each one, a GS file with the source code, and the same for the credentials, but in a JSON format. For each of our credentials, a JSON file is generated. For the variables of our equipment, a properties file will be generated, key value, where our variables are located. Those variables that are sensitive will not be saved. The same will happen for the credentials. In addition, the clone generates two hidden files, a git ignore, very interesting if you wanted to manage our code through a version control system, and a YepCode JSON containing the metadata of our workspace. It is very interesting, once our workspace has been cloned, to add a version control. As we can see, files that may be sensitive are ignored. We can add everything, make a commit, set a source, do a push, and all of our code will be under version control. Once we have cloned our workspace locally, we will be able to execute processes. To do so, we will use the run command. The run command requires the process ID, and to obtain it, we have the processes command. Processes command will list the list of processes with their IDs and status. We can execute a command by passing it the process ID. This process will be executed locally. As we have seen before, there are processes that require certain input parameters, and as we have also seen, the clone command generates default input parameters for each of the processes that we have to fill in with the local execution data. If we now run this process again, we will see that it's executed using these input parameters. If we would like to use other input parameters, we can do so using the parameter option. We will specify a name for these parameters and see what happens. As we can see in the second run, it has used the input parameters from the other JSON file. What we will do now is save our progress, and we will continue. Now that we know how to clone and run processes locally, the next step is to evolve one of these processes. To do this, we make a process and modify it locally. Right now, this process is modified locally, and to check it, we have this status command that will list the status of each one of the resources. In case we want to list the status of a type of a resource, for example processes, we'll use its topic, and it will only list the resources of that type. Once we have modified this process locally, we want to take these changes to the cloud. And for this, we have the push command. The push command will update all our resources. We can use the topic of a resource type to push only the resources of one type, or even indicate the ID to push only that particular resource. As we can see now, if we access the cloud, we'll see that this process has been modified. And if we run the status command again, we will see that everything is up to date. In case the process has changes in the cloud and in local, the status command will indicate that it has conflicts. And in case we push this resource with conflicts, it'll ask us what we want to do. It'll ask us in this case if we want to override the resource in the origin. We will say yes. We load the page and we'll see that we have pushed the changes that we had in local. This applies to both push and pull. The difference between push and pull is that not all our resources can be pushed. Variables and credentials can only be managed through the web. And that's pretty much all you can do with YepCode's new tool. With the CLI, you will have the advantage of having even more control over your resources, and you will be able to develop your processes in a more efficient way. We hope you like it, and see you soon, YepCoders!